नमस्ते प्रिय संस्कृत मित्राणि संस्कृताध्ययनस्य अस्मिन् द्वितीये स्तरे युष्माकं सर्वेषां हार्दिकस्वागतम्. So, namaste dear Sanskrit friends, a very hearty welcome to all of you in the second level course in spoken Sanskrit or to this intermediate level of spoken Sanskrit. Aham chintitavati yat aham etam vargam bhasha dvaye karishyami Sanskrite Angla bhashayam cha kintu anantaram aham kinchit vicharya nirnayam swikritavati yat aham adhika bhagam Angla bhashayam eva karishyami yataha vishwataha chhatraha etam vargam swikarisyanti atah adhika bhagam Angla bhashayam eva bhavishyati. So I would like to just mention that I was considering doing this course in a dual language format of Sanskrit and English, but taking into consideration that there are students from across the world who are going to be participating in this course, I decided that it would be better to do most of the teaching in English. Sanskrita sambhashanasya bahu avasarah bhavishyati tat sotsaham utsaha purvakam nishchayena kurvantu. There will be a lot of opportunity to practice speaking in Sanskrit, and I invite you to do so enthusiastically. Tadanim eva Sanskrita bhashayaha swadam anubhavishyanti. That is when you will get the real taste of this language. Bhashayaha yuktim cha bodhishyanti. You will also be able to understand the logic of this language. So, without much ado, let's move on to the first lesson, which is lecture number 1. This will be an introduction to the Devanāgarī script of the varṇamālā or the alphabet. So, the main content of this course will be around the revision of the varṇamālā, the alphabet, the sounding of it, as well as the introduction to the writing of the letters. And we will look at some real special creations that are possible in the Sanskrit language. Alright, so you remember we had discussed in the previous course, we had discussed about the sounds and how one is actually introduced to the sound mechanism of the Sanskrit language and how sound itself is produced. So here we have 5 places of pronunciation. This drawing here is my version of the human vocal instrument. So there are 5 areas, as you can see. So we have here, you have the gutturals, the first one, the throat, which is also known as kanthya. Then we have the second, which is the palatals, or we have, it also happens when the tongue sort of goes down to the teeth there. So you have the talavya, they are known as the talavyas also. Then you have the third one, which is on the top of the roof of the mouth, the center of the palate, known as the cerebrals or the murdhanya in Sanskrit. Then you have the tongue going to the front of the teeth. It sometimes even pops out in between the teeth. So that's the set of dentals or the dantya. And finally, we have the set of letters corresponding to the lips or the labials or the oshthya. So these are the 5 areas of pronunciation, and all the vowels as well as the consonants correspond to these different areas of pronunciation with different degrees of touch, sound, breath. So there's a play around all of that. So let's move on. We look at the 16 vowels. First we will sound them and then we will go into the writing of them. So the first one, the very first sound that the human vocal instrument can produce is the A, and the long one A. So A. Then the palatal ones E. Then the labial ones U. Then on top with the cerebrals R. Then the dentals L, and then we do a combination of when we go from A to E, the sound we encounter in the middle is the A. So A, it's a long sound. Then the I, slow motion of that. So A is also known in Sanskrit, there is a term called guna. So the guna of E, like an increase of the E, is the A. And then the I, there is a particular term known as vriddhi. It's like an even bigger increase of that sound. And then we have A to U gives us O, and then the slow of that is Au. So O is known as the guna of U, and Au is the vriddhi of U. Alright, and then we have the last two, which are the anuswara, which is representative of the nasal sounds. So it's the and we have what we know as the visarga, which is a very typical feature of the Sanskrit language. It's the aspirated Okay, so I'd also like to show you this on my fingers as we had done it in our previous course. So I'd like you to indicate different sounds to each of the fingers to allocate them. So we have a, I, u, u, r, l. So the 5 basic consonants that we saw there come into the 5 fingers, and then you do from A to E. So we get A, then I, A to U gets O, slow motion Au, and then to indicate the dot, as you can see. So many of you won't have understood why I do this, but that's to indicate the dot, and aha, 2 dots that are beside it for the visarga. So now, because the focus of this class is on understanding the script of this of devanāgarī, I'd like you to start paying attention to how it is written. And next, what we will do is that we are going to start writing it out. So what I request you to do is to please bring a paper and a pen. So patram lekhanim cha sthapayatu, and as and when I am writing it out, please try to follow along with me. A few things there. So one is that we always tend to write from left to right. Astu tari vamataha dakshina parshvam prati lekhaha bhavati. The second thing is that you will see most of the letters are accompanied by a shiro rekha, or there is this line on the head there. Can you see that line? So each of these letters has a line on the head known as the shiro rekha, and that is there to indicate a whole word that holds together. Okay, so a string of letters held together in a word are indicated by this line that goes over the head. So the other thing that would be helpful for you to do is to have a notebook or something which has ruled pages, because the distance of the ruled lines, as you can see indicated there, will help you to write beautifully. There's a certain artistry about this language, and therefore as you write it, it would help you to fit your letters harmoniously within that particular area. Okay, so let's start writing now without further ado. Tari lekhitum arambham kurma. So the first letter is the A, and as you can see, it is like a 3 and which has a bridge and a T. So Astu. And as you write the letters, please say them aloud. That would be of big help. What would be ideal is that you write a letter as I'm showing you. Then you close your eyes and in your mind's eye write out the letter again. You can even indicate it with your hand like that, or just in your mind's eye write it out again and make the sound. So accompany the writing of the letters with the sound, just like little children do, because then you're enabling your brain to make many connections around that form. You're learning how to write it, you're visualizing how to see what that sound sounds like, etc. So let's continue. A has the same thing, but it has an extra stick. So A, and that extra stick to indicate the A. Got that? Now what is also beautiful about the Sanskrit letters is that they say that if you could take a picture of the sound of this letter, it would actually resemble this particular form, and therefore there seems to be a certain vibrational transparency between the auditory aspect and the visual representation. And therefore there are groups that I know across the world who learn Sanskrit who say that just writing Sanskrit letters, the Devanāgarī script, is almost like a meditation. And therefore I would also invite you to try and enjoy this writing experience as if you were going through a certain meditative journey. Alright, so we have A, next E. So you start with a small stick, then a snake with a tail and a line over it. E, sorry, that's a short one. And then the E is the same thing, but it has a C over the head. E. Then you have the next one, which is the U, and as you can see, it is just the 3. Now, one way that you can sort of remember the U is by remembering the sound Om. So, Om is when you go from A to U. So, you encounter the sound O. So, A to U was the O. So, the sound O has both these aspects. It has the and the U. So, if you just remember the U, the Om, the first part of it can help you know what this letter U is, and then by an addition you know what the is. Alright. So, U, the U is the same thing, but as you can see there is a tail like for the Om. Next, R. So, R is a little more complicated. So, you start with the reverse K and then you do a small R. Got it? So, R, and then R is the same thing, but you do a second small C below it. R. Now, the L is a bit like, it has the sound L in it, and L is the consonant corresponding to the vowel L. So, in the L, I remember it by thinking of the word love. So, it's like a heart. So, that's how you can use these mnemonic tricks to remember it. Okay. So, we have like half a heart and a small C below that. So, that is, and a small T on top. L. So, here you can actually write it continuously, which I will do in the next letter to show it to you. So, this is the L, and then we have the thing, and then you continue with the small C below it, double C. L. So, sometimes you do hear L, there's a little bit of a shade of a R in it. So, there is a debate about how exactly these two sounds should be pronounced, because you don't find them very often in the usage of the Sanskrit language. We move on, we have the A. So, for the A you can write it like that. So, you start it and then you go down and then you add a small L, opposite L beside it. A. I is the same thing, but it has an antenna on the head. I. Then O. O is like the as you can see, but it has an antenna on the head. O. Ow has a double antenna on the head, and then the anuswara, as you can see, it's comprised of the so there is the letter and the dot, the bindu, to represent the anuswara, and aha, 2 dots on the side. So, and aha. So, here we have the 16 vowels laid out. Let's just read it once again and focus your attention on the forms of the sounds, okay, the different letters. So, a, I, u, r, l, e, I, o, ow, aha. Uttamam. Let's move on to the consonants. So, in the consonants, I will be writing the letters besides the letters as you can see them. So the first set of consonants that we have are the gutturals, and you have k, k, g, gh, ng. So k is touch sound, k, breath on that, touch sound breath, g sound touch, and then sound touch breath, gh, finally the nasal ng. So now let's see how you write that out. So k is a very beautiful letter, so I'll try and get that correct. So you start with a small round, a stick, and then a beautiful tail, k. Alright, so say it, k. Next, k. So k here, as you can see, the printed letter, in that it's connected. So normally when we write it out, we don't connect it, but we make sure that the two parts of the letter are close. Otherwise, they will become two separate letters like the r and the v. So you have to make sure that they stick quite close. Alright, so let's do that. So you start with a small round and then a tail, and then you do a small round beside it and you go all the way down. So that's the k. Then the g is a small, just like a small hook, and a t, g. Then you have a sleeping reverse 3 and the stick, gh. And then you have, it's like an E but without the tail, and you have to put the dot in, otherwise it will become the letter d. Alright, so k, k, g, gh, ng. Lovely. Next, the ch. So the ch I refer to as the C series, the C hyphen series, because you have small hyphens combined with the letter C in different angles, the English C in different angles. Alright, so the first one is you start with a hyphen and then you do a sleeping C and you put a T like that, ch. Next, you do a reverse 3 that goes all the way up. So you have a gh here that did a reverse 3 and which had a straight T. But here you do a reverse 3 which goes all the way up with a tail. Okay, so that's the ch. Do a sleeping C hyphen and then the T, so j. Then we do an E for the j. So you start with the E and then you make a bridge and a T. So that's the j. So you also find another variation of the j which is like a hook. I'm just writing it on top there. So it is like a bh that you can see here, but which has a tail like the k. So that's also a j. In some prints you will find that version. And then you have the ny, which is a reverse C, a hyphen and a T. Okay, that's the ny. Moving on, so we have ch, j, j, ny. Then we have the t, which I refer to as the tomato series. You have different ways of writing the t. So t for tomato, just a mnemonic trick to help you remember. So you start with a small line and a half tomato, t. Then for the t, a small line and a full tomato, t. The d is an easy one because you can remember the word dollar, and it looks like a dollar minus the line that goes across it. So you start with a small stick and then you do an S which looks like a dollar. So that is the d. So you have to be careful because it resembles the E minus the tail, and it also resembles the ng but minus the dot. So there are letters that resemble each other also. We have the next, which is the dh. So it's a small stick with a half tomato and a full tomato, baby tomato inside. So dh. And then the last one, which is the n, is a bit like a beehive and then a T beside it. So n. Alright, let's move on. So, but before that, once we'll say it, t for tomato, t half tomato, th full tomato, d for dollar, d for half tomato, baby full tomato, n for a beehive and T. Next, th is like a tap a little bit. So th, tap, so it goes all the way down. So th. Th is an interesting letter. It resembles a swan a little bit, the way the children draw swans.
So you start with a small round, go all the way round and come up like that. But you have to remember that this is one letter where the line doesn't go all the way across. Otherwise, it can be confused for other letters like the y, for example. So, th. Then the d is a bit like the d, but with a tail. So start with a small stick, half tomato, full tomato, tail. The resembles the letter g, but it starts with a small round and it goes all the way down, and this is another letter where the line doesn't go across. So you can remember that in the dental series there are two letters where the line doesn't cross, and they are both the aspirated sound, th and dh. Okay, and the n is a bit like a nozzle of the tap, so it starts with a small round and goes to the end, and that's your n. Okay, so th, d, dh, n. Uttamam. Moving on to the labials. So in the labials, the p looks like the English p, but it is like a reverse image, but it's not as rounded on the top as well. So p is the same, but it has a tail. Now p is a letter that there is a tendency to pronounce it as the f, but in Sanskrit it would be wrong to pronounce it as a f. That's more what the other languages like Hindi etc. do. In this it is clearly a p. Okay. Then we go on to the b. B is one of my favorites because it has a few images associated with it. B is like the baby for me. So it's like a mother with a pregnant mother. So the stomach is out round, the body of the mother, the stomach out there, and then the baby is out. So there is a cesarean section on it. So you do the round tummy, you do the mother's body. I'll do that again. Round tummy, body, and then the cesarean section. Okay, so that's the b for baby, another way of remembering. Bh is a letter where you start with a small hook, go down, cross, and then you do a T, and this is another letter where the line doesn't go all the way across, because if it did, then it would become the m. Okay, so you have to be careful. So that's the bh, and m is the same thing, but where you have to start straight and then put the line across. Okay, the line has gone a little slanted, but that's also because of this digital pen. So p, p, b, bh, m. All right, so can we just repeat it once quickly? K, I see that the k has disappeared. All right, k, g, gh, ng, ch, ch, j, jh, ny, t, th, d, dh, n, t, th, d, dh, n, p, ph, b, bh, m. Next we have the y, the semi-vowels, also known as antasthaha. And here we went from a to e, became the a. Now you go from e to a, so y. So it was like the th but minus the round at the top. Y. So you start like that, y. Then you have the r, which is like the k, as you will see in the previous one. You see the k here? So that same thing happens here, but it's only the first part of it. So round and all the way down. R, L for love, so half the heart. Stick, T with the line across. L, V. So you see that the letter R and V put together becomes like the K here. Okay. So we have V, which is like the baby but without the cesarean. And it's very interesting that in many languages these two letters are often confused with each other. The V gets replaced by the B and etc. So it's probably understandable. It's interesting how similar they look as well. Then you have the shs. We have the three shs, which are also known as ushmanaha. Sh, sh, s, h are all the ushmana letters. They are heat generating. So we have the sh, the palatal sh. Two ways of writing it. So the first one is with 21. It's one way of writing it. The other one is like this. You do this kind of nice swiggle there, and then you do the T. So you will see both variations there. So sh, the sh is like a p with a cut right across. So you do a p and you put the line across it. Sh. And then we have the s. So the s and the r look similar. So it's a bit of a cross there. Okay. So s, and then you have the bridge T. S. And then we have the letter H, which is one of my favorites because it looks like a very beautiful letter. So you start with a small T, then you give it a nice half S, like a half S, and then it sort of receives it. It's a very beautiful letter to write. So you start with the T, then it's as if there's a giving and there is a receiving like that. It's very beautiful. So H, okay. And then we have the three conjunct consonants known also as samyuktaksharam. Samyukta joint akshara letters. So the ksh is again another beautiful one. So you start with a line like that, go across, down and tail and the T. I will just do this, the T again for you to try and get it straight. So that's a T. Okay, ksh. And then the ksh is a combination of k and sh. Then you have the tr, opposite k, which is a combination of t and r. And then the jnya. So the jnya is like a half jug with the tail. So it's like the j but with the tail, and it has the stick there. So jnya. Okay, it should join there. So that's the jnya. Okay, so ya, ra, la, va, sh, sah, ksha, tra, jnya. All right, now let's move on, because what we see is that we've looked at the vowels independently, we've looked at the consonants together, and now what is important is to understand that the vowels, when they attach themselves to consonants, they become symbols. And what you need to learn is the symbols that are used to represent each of these vowels. Now, when you see the letters in the varṇamālā, they are normally the consonant along with the vowel a. So, like you can see here, we have the k, which is the consonant, with the vowel a, which becomes the k. But then you have all the different vowels as well. So when the k attaches with the a, it becomes the extra stick that joins in there. It is the ka. See that? Ka. Next, for the ki, there is the stick that comes before it, and there is a hook on the head. That is the ki. So because this line precedes the letter, when you're writing out, you have to keep the space. So you have to visualize the word in your head before you actually put the pen on the paper. Otherwise, you are going to mess up regarding the beautiful arrangement of the letters. Okay, so this requires a little bit of planning as well. The ki, so you put a stick and a hook that comes after it. Okay, ki. Then we have the ku, which is like a small sleeping 6, and the ku, which is like the reverse 9. So ku. Kr is like the small c below the letter kr. Kr is the double c below it. Then you have the klr. So klr is interesting because the entire letter is retained and the consonant just becomes a bit shorter. So we have the klr. Okay, and then you have the klr. So I must warn you that we never really encounter this klr combination in words, but it exists. It has been given its due place in order to maintain the perfection of the sound system of the vowels. But that's the klr. And then we have the k, which is represented by a single antenna that comes on the head of the letter. K. Kai, double antenna, Ko is a stick and an antenna. Ko. Cow is a stick and a double antenna. Cow. Kam is the visarga, and kam is the anuswara, and kaha is the two dots beside it. Kaha. So ka, ka, ki, ki, ku, ku, kr, kr, kl, kl, ke, kai, ko, cow, kam, kaha. What we would like you to do is to also try to practice it with some other letters. But one thing you have to keep in mind, that if you have a letter like, for example, the sh or the s, which have two heads touching the shirorekha and two points below, you have to make sure that the vowel will attach itself to the second part of it. Okay. So, if you had to do say, for example, it would come up there, or if you had to do the su, it would add itself below the second stick, that is the su. Okay. So, just keep that in mind. As you are practicing with the different letters. Fine. So, I thought we could just look at a few words that you are familiar with and wrap up the session. So, here we have a for aham, a for akasha, akashaha. I have tried to show you the vowel independently as well as with the consonants. So, I for iti. Then you have E for Ishani, U for Upavishatu, U for Uruhu, or Ruksha, Ruksha, or Vadhu, meaning the wife. Now, Ruksha, as you can see, the Uruhu, the R is a letter which is a little special because the U comes into its back like that for a short one. For the longer one, it does a small squiggle and it goes down. So, Ruksha, and then or Ruksha meaning hard. Then we have R for Rishihi, R for Pitrin. So, we don't really have words starting with R. We don't have words starting independently with the R or the L, but we have it in combination with the K. So, we have Kliptam, which is also to mean to create, Kliptam, and then R, no words that we can find there. Then we have A for Ete, for these like we have seen before. Next I, so Airavatasyaite. So, I have tried to combine two words here into a sandhi that we are going to look into in our, that we are going to look at in our future classes. So, this is a combination of Airavatasya, of Airavata, who is the animal, the white elephant of Indra, and Ete, these, Padaha, legs. So, that combines into Airavatasyaite Padaha. Uttamam. Then O for Osho. Osho is just the philosopher's name that I have taken, written some very interesting books that you might be interested to look at. And then Au for Aushadham, then Purushau. So, Aushadham meaning medicine, and Purushau is the dual case which we will also be looking at. Purushaha, Purushaha, Purushau. Okay, two of them. And then for Amshuman. So, this Anuswara is interesting because it is a dot indicating the nasal, but sometimes it is also pronounced as in different ways in different places. So, sometimes it is the Shuman more in the south, or you have Shuman more in the north, or if you, in the north of India when I am saying north, or you can have Anshuman, which is more in the Maharashtra region. Now, what I would tend to follow more in my pronunciation is to look at the letter. So, the sh is a palatal sound, and therefore, the Anuswara would take on the nasal sound of that group of palatals. So, I would do Anshuman, cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, sh. So, Anshuman is what I would tend to do. And then you have aha for the visarga. So, saha, that we know, and hansaha. So, I would do hansaha, and hansaha is the swan. And then we have this famous mantra which is soham. So, it is saha plus aham, as you can see written there. So saha plus aham, the aha plus a tend to become o, so soham, another sandhi form that we will encounter in our future lessons. So this is a very important mantra that is recited for meditation. So the mantra is just soham, I am that, or ham sa soham, which they say is the natural rhythm of our breathing. So if you close your eyes, you do ham sa soham. This is supposed to be a very powerful mantra, and you can definitely try it out. But the next time you try it out, try and see if you can remember what the sounds look like as well. Okay, so with that we have sort of wrapped up the letters in themselves. But just before we close, I'd like to introduce you to this very special creation of the Sanskrit language, which are very unique to this particular language itself. And that is because every letter can mean something. So this is known as the Varna Chitra, which is a composition made by restricting the use of certain consonants. So we have this one which only uses one consonant and a variety of other vowels. So we have, it would be fun if you can try reading that. At the end of this verse, you will definitely know what the na looks like. Okay, so nano, nanunno, nunneno, na 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 no, nunno, nunno, na nunneno, nun na ne na nunna nunna nut. Not very easy, but good fun trying to do it. And this particular verse means a man is not a man who is wounded by a low man. Similarly, he is not a man who wounds a low man. The wounded one is not considered to be wounded if his master is unwounded, and he who wounds a man is already wounded. He who wounds a man who is already wounded is not a man. Very interesting, but this is what the sandhi allows us to do, where you can combine letters together and you can have a completely different meaning out of words that are put together. So this is the book that I have used. So I will be using a few quotations from this book that is called The Wonder That is Sanskrit by Dr. Sampadananda Mishra and Vijayji from the Sri Aurobindo Society. But the excellent book, very, very interesting to see what are the different marvels that are there in the Sanskrit language. And to close, so this is a quotation by Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was a former Prime Minister of India at the World Sanskrit Conference in 2012. So he says that there is a great genius of this language. He says, Sanskrit, which is recognized as one of the oldest living languages of the world, is often misunderstood as only a language of religious hymns and rituals. Such an understanding does injustice to the great genius of this language and betrays ignorance of the work of great writers, thinkers, sages and scientists like Kautilya, Charaka, Shushruta, Aryabhatta, Varahamihira, Brahmagupta, Bhaskaracharya and many others. Indeed, Sanskrit is much more than a language. It is a complete knowledge system that embodies the great learning traditions of ancient India. So now that you have a better understanding of how the letters are written, we have made a few initial steps. I'm genuinely hoping that it will give you an independent access to these treasures if you're able to read the Devanāgarī Lipi. And last thing that I would like to say is that you can please practice these letters. So you can practice these letters by yourself, close your eyes, try to do it by yourselves, and writing these letters also improves the dexterity of your fingers, they say. So multiple benefits again, do practice them. Try and learn at least a letter a day or maybe 2-3 letters a day, and you can write it out big, put it in your room, stick it somewhere so that when you wake up you see the letter, and you can try to practice it in that way. When you're traveling, close your eyes, see if you can recollect the letter. Many small ways by which you can try to hasten or speeden your process of learning the Devanāgarī script. With that, I leave you to enjoy the beautiful forms of this letter, of this language, of the Devanāgarī script.
So practice on, and I'll see you in the next class where we will learn the combination of consonants. So, dhanyavadaha.